In a quiet suburban town, nestled between rolling hills and tree-lined streets, lived the Rahman family, a picture of warmth, unity, and love. At the heart of this household were Ayan and Meher, a couple married for over 15 years, whose bond seemed unbreakable. Ayan, a respected schoolteacher, was known for his calm demeanor and unwavering principles. Meher, a talented artist, ran a small gallery from home, her spirit as vibrant as her paintings. Together, they had built a life rooted in trust, laughter, and shared dreams. Their teenage daughter, Alina, was the perfect blend of both, curious, kind, and wise beyond her years. Evenings in the Rahman household were often filled with lively discussions, music, and home-cooked meals, a sanctuary from the chaos of the outside world. Close friends and neighbors often admired their harmony, calling them the ideal family. But beneath this peaceful exterior lay unspoken histories and fragile truths, buried deep, long forgotten, or intentionally hidden. For years, they had managed to shield themselves from the past. Yet, the foundation of their serenity was more delicate than it appeared. As time moved forward, the truth that had long remained dormant was slowly inching its way to the surface, threatening to unravel everything they had built together. As days passed in the Rahman household, small but unsettling changes began to emerge, hardly noticeable at first, yet oddly persistent. Meher grew quieter, often lost in thought, her brush lingering on half-finished canvases. Her once vivid paintings began taking on darker tones, muted colors, stormy skies, faces turned away in sorrow. Ayan noticed the shift but dismissed it as artistic exploration, though the unease tugged at him silently. Alina, ever observant, found an old, locked wooden box in the attic while searching for childhood albums. Covered in dust and tucked beneath faded quilts, it seemed deliberately hidden. When she asked Meher about it, her mother's reaction was swift, too swift. "Just old junk," she said, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Meanwhile, Ayan received an anonymous letter at school, only a few cryptic words written in shaky handwriting. The truth always finds a way. He tossed it aside, thinking it was a prank, but it lingered in his mind like a shadow. These subtle ripples in their daily life hinted at something buried deep, an unresolved past that had not been forgotten, only delayed. And now, it seemed, it was beginning to stir again, inching closer to the surface with every passing day. Meher's behavior began to change in ways that were hard to ignore. Once cheerful and open, she became guarded and easily startled, often checking the front door twice before locking it, even in broad daylight. She started avoiding phone calls, especially when the caller ID displayed unknown numbers. If she answered, she would speak in hushed tones, glancing over her shoulder as if afraid someone might be listening. Ayan noticed how she began avoiding conversations about the past, especially when Alina asked about her childhood or their family history. She would brush the questions aside or change the subject, her smile tight, her eyes distant. Her once calm presence was now replaced by a jittery edge, like someone constantly waiting for bad news. Alina, too, sensed the change. Her mother, once her closest confidant, now seemed emotionally unavailable. She caught Meher one night burning papers in the fireplace, staring into the flames with a look of quiet panic. When Alina asked what they were, Meher simply replied, "Old things best forgotten." Concerned and confused, Ayan and Alina began exchanging worried glances, unsure how to approach her. The shift was undeniable. Meher was hiding something, and whatever it was beginning to consume her from the inside out. One rainy afternoon, while organizing the storage cabinet in the study, Alina stumbled upon a thin envelope wedged between old books. Curious, she pulled it out. It was unmarked, sealed with yellowing tape, and oddly heavier than expected. Inside, she found a faded photograph and a letter, creased from being read and folded many times. The photograph showed a much younger Meher, standing beside a man Alina had never seen before. They looked close, too close. The man's arm rested around Meher's waist, and both wore matching rings. Confused, Alina flipped the photo over. In neat handwriting it read, M&R, 2005, Delhi. Her heart pounded as she unfolded the letter. It was written in a man's hand, the tone deeply personal, almost pleading. I still remember the promises. You can't just erase the past, Meher. You owe me the truth. If not for you, then for her. Alina's hands trembled. Her? Was the letter about her? Before she could read further, she heard footsteps and quickly shoved the envelope back into the cabinet. Her mind raced with questions. Who was the man? What promises? And what truth had her mother buried so deeply it was never meant to be found? The illusion of their perfect life had just begun to crack. That evening, Alina couldn't contain her emotions any longer. As dinner ended, and Ayan stepped out for a phone call, she turned to her mother with trembling hands and tear-filled eyes, the photograph now laid on the table between them. Who is he, Ami? Alina asked, her voice low but sharp. And what truth do you owe him? What truth do you owe me? Meher froze. Her eyes flicked to the photo, then to the letter still clutched in Alina's hand. For a moment her mask slipped, a flicker of panic, then exhaustion, but it returned just as quickly. That was a long time ago, Meher said, her voice tight. It's nothing you need to worry about. Nothing? Alina's voice cracked. You said Papa was your first love. You said there were no secrets in this house. I told you what mattered, Meher replied, avoiding her daughter's eyes. Some things from the past are best left buried. They mean nothing now. But they meant something once, Alina shot back. Before Meher could answer, Ayan re-entered the room. Both women fell silent, the photograph quickly hidden beneath a napkin. But the tension hung thick in the air, an unspoken war that had just begun, fueled by denial, hurt, and a truth no longer willing to stay hidden. The next night, unable to carry the weight of silence any longer, Meher sat down with Ayan and Alina in the living room. Her hands trembled as she held the same photograph Alina had found, her voice barely above a whisper. I wasn't always honest, she began, eyes fixed on the floor. Before I met Ayan, I was married, for a brief time. His name was Rizwan. Ayan's face went pale. Alina sat frozen. We were young, reckless, and deeply in love, but it was toxic. He was controlling, paranoid, and eventually abusive. I left him after just a year, but not without consequences. She looked directly at Alina now. When I found out I was pregnant, I didn't tell him. I moved away, started over. I met Ayan, and for the first time, I felt safe. He gave me a life I never thought I deserved. Alina's voice cracked. So, he's not my biological father? Meher nodded, tears streaming. Ayan knew I had a past, but not the full truth. I didn't think it mattered anymore. Ayan stood silent, eyes welling with disbelief, not just from the betrayal, but from the realization that their entire life had been built on half a truth. The room fell into stunned silence, the foundations of their family shaken by the truth that had finally torn its way to the surface. The revelation shattered the fragile calm that once defined the Rahman household. Ayan, usually composed and rational, stood in stunned silence for a long moment before quietly walking away. That night, he slept in the guest room, his silence more painful than any words. He couldn't look Meher in the eyes. The weight of her betrayal, years of trust undone in a single confession, left him hollow. Alina, caught between shock and heartbreak, withdrew into herself. The knowledge that Ayan was not her biological father left her feeling unanchored. She avoided both of them, locking herself in her room, old photographs scattered on her bed, as she tried to make sense of her identity. Everything she thought she knew about her life, her parents, even herself, now felt like a lie. Meher moved through the house like a ghost, burdened by guilt. She wanted to explain, to mend the pieces, but her words no longer held the comfort they once did. The silence around her had grown too thick, too loud. Dinner went untouched, conversations stopped, even the air felt heavier, as though the house itself mourned the truth that had been uncovered. The bond they once cherished was cracking, and none of them knew how or if it could be repaired. In the days that followed, the silence in the house grew unbearable. The once warm and lively home felt cold, filled with glances avoided and words left unspoken. Yet beneath the surface, love still flickered, wounded but not extinguished. Ayan was the first to try. Late one night, he knocked gently on Alina's door. "Can I come in?" he asked softly. She hesitated, then nodded. Sitting beside her, he handed her a photo of the two of them from her 5th birthday, her arms around his neck, her smile wide. "I may not be your blood," he said, his voice trembling, "but every memory, every moment, I've been your father, and I always will be." Tears welled in Alina's eyes. She rested her head on his shoulder, silent, but no longer distant. Meanwhile, Meher stood at the edge of their lives, unsure how to step back in. One evening, she attempted to speak with Ayan, her voice barely steady. "I was scared. I wanted to protect you both. I thought burying the truth would keep us whole." Ayan listened, but the pain in his eyes remained. "You protected us from the truth, Meher, but in doing so, you broke the very thing you were trying to save." Reconciliation had begun, but its path was uncertain. Trust, once fractured, doesn't heal overnight, and for some wounds, even love may not be enough. Weeks passed, but the scars left by the truth refused to fade. The air remained heavy, conversations brief and strained. Though Ayan tried to hold on, for Alina, for the memories, his heart was no longer at peace. The man who had once built his world around Meher now saw only the walls she had hidden behind. One quiet morning, Meher found a packed bag by the front door and a letter on the kitchen table. Ayan's handwriting was steady, but the words were soaked in sorrow. "I will always love you, but love built on silence is not enough. I need time, space, to find myself again. Maybe one day we'll meet in peace, not pain." He had left before sunrise. Meher stood frozen, the letter in her hands, her heart heavy with the price of her choices. She didn't cry. She simply sat by the window, watching the light spill across the floor, knowing that some goodbyes don't come with closure, only consequence. Alina, caught between the two, chose to stay with her mother, though part of her heart went with Ayan. She wrote to him often, clinging to the bond they still shared. And so, the family that once seemed unbreakable stood in quiet ruin, torn not by hate, but by a truth too long buried and too deep to ignore. Months later, the house felt different, empty in some ways, yet quieter, as if finally breathing after a long-held breath. Meher sat in her art studio, staring at a blank canvas, the weight of the past slowly giving way to something new. The truth had torn them apart, yes, but it had also forced them to confront who they really were beneath the masks they wore. Ayan had moved to a small apartment nearby, and though their relationship remained fragile, there were moments of peace, phone calls filled with tentative hope, and visits where silence was no longer unbearable. Alina, now learning to navigate her complicated identity, found strength in the cracks of her family's brokenness. She embraced both her past and present, understanding that truth, while painful, also carried the power to free. In the end, the revelation that once threatened to destroy them became a painful but necessary turning point. It reminded them all that love without honesty is fragile, and sometimes, only by facing the truth can new beginnings emerge from the ruins of the past.